Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the La Lita Loca Cruise Podcast. I am your host, Tony, here to talk you through everything going on in cruising. And I've got a really interesting and special conversation for you today. Today, I am talking to Emma Cruises. Emma is a UK-based cruise content creator, and she is blowing up on all of the social media platforms. We talk about a lot of different things. We talk about what it's like to cruise to the UK. We talk about her cruising origin story. We talk about the royal family. A very British cruise podcast today. This is my conversation with Emma Cruises. Well, look who is here today. It's Emma Cruises all the way from the UK. Top of the morning, Governor. Is that what I'm supposed to say?
Hi, Tony.
Chip, cheerio.
I never know even which accent you're trying to do, but yeah, you're gonna have to perfect that before you come here.
That's right. I'm making my way. I'm making my way to the UK. I definitely want to talk about that, but instead of talking about me, I want to talk first. This is my new thing. I want to talk about your cruising origin story, as if you are a superhero. I want to know your origin story. So, a simple question: why and when did you get into cruising? What got you into this space?
Okay, so I was 11 years old, so it wasn't exactly my choice, but my family took a cruise. My gran came into some money from some relative who I didn't know and decided what I want to do with this is I want to take everybody on a cruise. She basically said, to my parents, I'll pay for it as long as you come and look after me. That was kind of the idea. So I was 11 on that cruise, and Mum says ever since then, as soon as I'd done that, I kept nagging her all the time, and every kind of 2 or 3 years we did that one when I was a teenager. So I grew up just thinking that cruising was really cool, and I never really had any ideas about it because I knew what it actually was like. And then when I started talking to people, got my first job, started talking to people at work, or and they hit me with these things that I just thought were ridiculous. So I started on the internet just to kind of show people what it's actually like. But yes, I was 11. So the things I remember from that first cruise, it was a Norwegian cruise in Alaska. Amazing place to start. But I don't remember the things that you'd normally remember from an Alaska cruise because I was 11. So I was more interested in the cookies, going up and down in the lifts, the elevators. I loved it. I was the teenagers who used to hang out on the stairs, those annoying ones. That was me.
Wow. All right. So first cruise, 11 years old, Norwegian Cruise Line. Since then, so you're older than 11 now, of course.
Yep.
How many cruises have you been on since that first cruise at 11?
If we're counting absolutely everything, then I'm up to 55. But that includes, I tend to count a cruise as if I've been on for one night and it sailed somewhere, then that's a cruise. I've done a lot of kind of press cruises that'll be 2 nights long. And I am counting the cruise that I took that was 8 hours long because I got a cruise card, I unpacked, they cancelled my cruise while I was at dinner, but I'm still counting that as a cruise. So
55. Look, I'm chasing that number. So count me jealous already. I wish I would have started at 11. So diversity of cruise lines, Norwegian on that cruise line. How many cruise lines have you sailed on since you started cruising?
I think I'm up to 12. So I started with Norwegian and I thought this kind of casual cruising was what cruising was like. I did MSc as well. And then what made me start my website was I took a Cunard cruise and I was like, what on earth is this? I'm absolutely not prepared for this. No one told me what this would be like. So I think I wrote a post called 8 things about cruising with Cunard or something, and that's where it started. Since then, I do everything from Carnival cruises to Cunard cruises. I've done Viking cruises, I go on ferries, I do river cruises, anything that's really on some sort of water. I think that's quite fun.
It brings me to an interesting question, and I've talked to several people, and of course, a lot of us do this because it's what we do as our livelihood these days. And so sometimes we're motivated to pick cruises because we've been offered a press cruise, that kind of thing. If you strip all of that away, and if you're just going to go on a cruise with your family, and you had the ability to pick any cruise line, which cruise line do you think you would gravitate toward just on your own personal preference?
Okay, it depends who I'm taking because if I'm cruising with my other half, Jono, we're very much on the casual side. I'm not going to get him to dress up for anything. So we tend to do, Royal Caribbean, Norwegian. They tend to be our go-tos. If I'm cruising with my parents, I'm very lucky. My parents still want to travel with me, so that's nice. We'll probably do a princess cruise, something like that. We've done quite a few P&O British cruise lines, but I tend to like the more kind of casual cruise lines rather than the ones with the I don't mind formal nights. I don't mind dressing up, but I'd prefer not to be told that I have to.
So you bring up an interesting point. So you mentioned Jono. I think the perception out there sometimes, because you make your videos and you do your content primarily by yourself, and I know he helps you film and stuff like that, but I think the perception is that you may be a solo cruiser. And let me say this: I'm like old enough to be your dad, so I'm gonna go into Tony dad mode here. Sometimes I'll read your comments, and there are some creepy dudes out there. And kudos to you for how you handle all of that. But let's set the record straight. Are you out there, young Emma, jet setting the world by yourself, or do you normally cruise with somebody?
I never cruise solo anymore. I did a couple pre-pandemic at the very start of my cruise YouTube channel, but I wouldn't do it now. And it's interesting you say about the comments because you know how YouTube works. You have so many words, creepy words in the block list. If you've seen them, they've managed to say something weird with all nice words. So that's a very small percentage. But yeah, I never cruise by myself anymore. People always say to me, sometimes I'll cruise with my family. I might be in a cabin with my brother, and people will say, "Oh, can't we see him?" It's hard being on YouTube, even if you've decided to do it. I would never want to put someone on the internet who didn't actively want to do it. The same, sometimes I'll cruise with my nieces, and I'm not about to put them on my YouTube channel. Definitely not, based on the weird comments that we get and stuff. So I'm never by myself, but it's always from my perspective, it's Emma Cruises. That's my YouTube channel. So
Absolutely. And I know you'll never say it, so I'll say it for you. If you're out there watching Emma, just enjoy the content and please don't be creepy. Like you said, it is hard enough to do and put yourself out there. And then the creep factor makes it even more of a challenge. So, okay, I'm sure you've answered this question a million times. What's still on your cruising bucket list? I recently saw you got to see the Northern Lights, which seemed fantastic. But well, I'm sure that was on your bucket list. What's still on your bucket list? If you could go anywhere on a cruise ship, what would be at the top of that list?
Well, if it was anywhere and money was completely no option, so I could fly first class, I'd love to head, over to Australia. I think that would be top of my bucket list. But the idea of, I mean, you know what it's like, long distance flights in economy. I prefer to, well, cruise over there maybe, but that'll take months. So yeah, maybe Australia. I'd love to do like a Panama Canal cruise. I'd love to get back to Alaska because I didn't really appreciate it when I was 11. But I have cruised out of the US 6 times. People always think, oh, Emma's English and she always cruises in Europe. I've done 6 out of the US. I've cruised in Asia, but never been over anywhere. I've never done Pacific Islands or Trans-Pacific cruise, anything like that. So that would be amazing. But it's so far away.
I would love to see you in Australia because my big Australian takeaway is so, of course, it's a continent on the other side of the world for both of us, but it's a very English place, right? Of course, it's, settled by, Great Britain. And so it's wild. You go there and it's a completely different culture with different things going on there, but they all speak English. And so it's kind of like, it's wild in that aspect that there's such a commonality there, but there is such a difference. And man, it is beautiful. I only got to spend time in Sydney. I did get to cruise in New Zealand. And New Zealand, again, I'm anticipating when I go to the UK and I go to some of these cities that are set off maybe in the countryside a little bit. I expect that that's what New Zealand kind of looks like. I think the UK will look like New Zealand, those kind of things, if I'm drawing a comparison. But Sydney, as a major city on the water, a major harbor city, there was a lot going on there. And then, of course, I heard from tons of Aussies that, you really haven't experienced Australia just in Sydney. You got to go to Brisbane and you got to go to Melbourne and all these places. And the wild thing, and of course, I don't know if it's like this in the UK, and it's like that somewhat in the United States, but there's an intense rivalry between those cities. Like even when I was on the cruise ship and I was with Sydney-siders and I was with people from Melbourne, they don't like each other so much. It's funny. Like I saw some pretty terse conversations in the casino. So if you ever get the chance, it is a long flight, and I way overpaid to get there just because I knew I wouldn't be able to handle economy. But it was like, it was a full like 20-hour type travel
Yeah.
experience, and it was a lot. But I would recommend it. And I didn't realize you hadn't been back to Alaska since 11, so that would be pretty
No.
interesting. I'd like to see you back in Alaska. My brain's already spinning. So here in the United States, like even on your YouTube, like YouTube videos or on TV, we get a lot of marketing and advertisement from Carnival, Royal, Norwegian, MSC Cruise Line. What's the experience like in the UK? Which cruise lines are you really seeing a lot of marketing for? Who's getting targeted, or who's the target cruise lines over there?
If you're watching TV and you're in England and you see a cruise line advert commercial come on, it's probably going to be a P&O cruise. It's a very British cruise line. It is our biggest cruise line by far. And if I meet someone and they're taking their first cruise, I could bet a lot of money that it'll probably be a P&O cruise. Apart from that, we do get the big kind of American cruise lines advertising, the Royal Caribbeans and the Norwegians. Not Carnival so much. Carnival very rarely come over to Europe, but MSC are really all over everything.
So as MSC came over to the United States and really tried to, grab the North American market, a lot of people rejected it. It felt too Mediterranean. It felt too different, too maybe international for a lot of people in the US. How is it received in the UK? Does it seem very different, very Mediterranean? Are they warm to it, or is it a cruise line that people are not warm to?
Yeah, I think we quite like it over here, but I think we're more used to sort of we can go on a plane for 2 hours and be somewhere that's completely different, speaks a completely different language. So we're quite used to that. I think MSC, the problem that they had is they moved over to America and said, we're making this for an American market. And they really didn't change that much. They just said, this is what we are on their, I've seen some of their commercials when they're trying to get an American audience. And that's not, I don't know. I think if they just kept with their product that they do really, really well and just said, we're in America now, come if you want, don't if you don't want. I've taken one Caribbean cruise with MSC and quite a few in Europe, and it's very, very different. But here, yeah, no, they're very popular with families, very, very cheap. So, yeah, and they sail out of the UK all the time. You can do a really cheap 3 night, 5 night, 7 night MSC cruise. So I like them.
MSC, it's such a weird thing, right? Again, if they, to your point, if they get the experience right for the target audience, if they make people in North America feel like it's a North American cruiser, if they get it completely right for people in the UK, Europe, that kind of thing, they're investing so much money in really interesting and beautiful and nice cruise ships. I think it's going to be really some of the most beautiful cruise ships I've ever seen. It makes me think. So when I think about you and I think about your trajectory and watching you grow through social media, through your blog, that kind of stuff over the last few years, I used to think of you as the person that said cruising isn't just for old people. And then I've also thought of you in the context as somebody who is a frugal cruiser, or somebody who does really well at cruising for the least amount of money. If that includes getting a guaranteed interior, that kind of thing. But
Yeah.
now I kind of see you as somebody who's making really interesting travel films in the context of cruising. One of the things in the cruise tube genre, whatever, is we've got a lot of different content types, a lot of great vloggers, a lot of great commentators, so good, but we don't really have a lot of people that are making, like, let's say, like a Lost LeBlanc or a Kara and Nate, those kind of travel films in a way that's getting a lot of exposure. And I start to see some of your latest videos be that. If you're trying to describe yourself to people right now as somebody who used to be cruising for old people, cruising,
Yeah.
if you can do it frugally, and now what you're doing, how do you see yourself in the space, or do you even contextualize yourself like that? Do you have a thought process around it?
I think what I try and do is I try and make cruise story videos for people who know nothing about cruising. I think what I used to do is sort of make videos assuming someone was going to take that cruise and that they actually cared about every single detail. Whereas in reality, I did a poll recently on my channel. More than half have never been on a cruise and probably don't even want to. They're just curious about it. So I try and make my videos suitable for if I came back from a cruise and I met a friend, I would tell them normally my videos are sort of 15, 20 minutes long. I would tell them that. And that's what I try and put on the internet. I wouldn't come back from a cruise and be like, right, on day one, this is where I ate. This is like, because I just don't think everyone needs that level of detail. So now I tend to do more of an overview, which anyone can watch. That's what I try and do.
That is really interesting because you and I we talked about YouTube for years, and
Mhm.
really the reality is there's more people out there that are unfamiliar with you and your content, us and our content, than are, and so it's a really interesting approach. You've told some great stories over the last year. The one that you've already mentioned that I think about a lot is when you went on a cruise and it was canceled within the first 8 hours. Did two questions here. Can you describe that experience? And then the second one, what story have you told over the last year that have brought a lot of non-cruisers to you? Like, is there one that stands out as like a big catalyst for bringing people to your storytelling? But yeah, tell us the story about going on a cruise that got immediately canceled.
Yeah, so it was a new British cruise line, one I'd never cruised with before, but I saw a very short Christmas markets cruise, and I thought that's the perfect way to try this ship. So I got on board, I got my cabin, we got unpacked, we did the muster drill, we went to dinner, we had our starters, we ate our starters, and then the captain did an announcement saying, "This cruise has been cancelled. You're going to have to leave by 9 a.m. tomorrow." And the thing is no one was actually, you would think people would be annoyed in that situation, but everyone just laughed really loudly, and they said that they would refund our drinks packages, of course. So I think everyone was just like, well, hey, we will just eat and drink for this evening, have a free, evening out. It was in London Tilbury, which is not a very big cruise port, and luckily I think almost everybody on board was local. No one had flown.
Hmm.
Imagine if you flew from the US to England, your cruise was cancelled, because it was such a short cruise. But it was so surreal, and for me coming back, it was like, I want to put everything that I've learned on YouTube into this video because this is an amazing story. So I tried to put everything into that, and that was one that definitely reached beyond the cruise audience, because even if you don't want to go on a cruise, it's interesting that a cruise was cancelled. 4 hours in, it was cancelled. We decided to leave that evening rather than, it was a Sunday night, so we'd have to drive through London on Monday morning. So there was no point us staying really. So we came home in the evening, but that definitely kind of was more newsworthy. It was in certain newspapers and stuff. So that was an instant boom of views. It's died down now because it was very kind of topical at the time. But when I do, I don't often have videos like that. But when something like that happens, that brings in a new audience. I think for me, if I do a new cruise line, it attracts people who like that thing, who aren't necessarily interested in cruising. Like when I took my first Disney cruise, I got a lot of people who had never considered a Disney cruise, but they liked Disney. Or, I've done cruises out of New York. You might get people who are interested in kind of general travel, not necessarily cruising. But when you found, I think it's something familiar and something new, that's how you get people in. Like my Northern Lights video, if someone, maybe they've been to Norway, maybe they want to see the Northern Lights, they don't necessarily care about cruising, but when they see them together, I think it just piques people's interest. And I think about what I watch on YouTube. I don't watch things that I'm going to actually do. I watch the most random stuff. So I think it's the same.
So we'll talk about YouTube a little bit, and we'll get back to cruising. But you mentioned it that everything that you learned about YouTube, it went into that cancellation video, and you felt like that's why it was successful. I don't think people understand, like YouTube's an interesting thing. Trying to entertain people and trying to tell a story is a kind of a skill that you can learn. And so when it comes to learning about YouTube that you referenced there, what are some of the resources? What are some of the things that you've done to learn about YouTube?
I know no one wants to hear the answer of trial and error, but it is so much trial and error and looking at retention graphs and data, which is really not that exciting. I did work in data before I decided to change over to the cruising world, and it definitely helps. I can see YouTube shows you when people drop off of your videos, and there's certain phrases that I will say that will make people leave. So if I say anything that makes it seem like the video is going to end, if I say, oh, and lastly onto this, as soon as people hear that, they think, oh, it's nearly over, I will just leave. So I try and sort of, if you learn one thing from every single video you make, I've made 500 videos. So I've learned 500 things at least. But yeah, that video, it was a really good story in that I could set it up as, this is why I booked this is what I expected, this is when I first thought things were going a bit strange, this is what happened, and in the end it was okay. I've never been on a cruise that I've regretted going on, as long as I kind of get as long as it matches the price point. If I've paid nothing for it, I expect nearly nothing. If I've paid a lot, I expect a lot. But it ends the story there. So I think that's it. I know that's not a good answer. I know people want see there's no secrets because it changes so fast on YouTube too. You've got to keep changing. Even if I do the same video I did a year ago that did great, it's not necessarily going to do great now. So you've got to kind of keep your eyes and ears open.
So I get asked a lot, like what resources I go to learn about YouTube. Who are some of your favorite educators, gurus out there that you go for information?
I like the Film Booth YouTube channel. You like him too, I think. And I
Yeah.
watch a lot of editing, storytelling YouTube channels. I can't remember all their names, but there's so many. I still do all my own editing on YouTube. Quite often people say, why don't you get an editor? But it's during the edit that I think of the most random things that I would never think to tell an editor to do. It's just because I've seen it so many times. So now I'm sticking with it. But yeah, I like a lot of editing podcasts. I don't even think it needs to be, I think sometimes you get so in an industry, and I've been in this since 2017. But what you need to do sometimes is look outside of that. So I've started to watch a lot of stories that are nothing to do with cruising, they're nothing to do with travel, but you can still apply the same sort of story frameworks and the same sort of. Sometimes I'll watch something and be like, that is genius. I will do something similar in my videos.
You also have a great resource on your website. You share a lot of the things that you've done to have a successful website, to have a successful YouTube channel. And so, and there's a lot of great information, obviously, about cruising. So I would highly recommend your website to anybody that wants to learn about cruising, about YouTubing, about the whole business of being a content creator. I know you started with just the written word with the blog in what, 2017? Is that what you said? 2017?
Yeah, end of 2016, I think I took that Cunard cruise. So yeah, it's been a while.
In just that short time, how have you seen social media and the way that people consume content change? Or have you? Do you feel like it's changed drastically? Or what do you think the landscape of social media and content creation is these days?
I mean, I think we are very well positioned being in the video side rather than the written side. As much as I liked writing things, and that's where I started, and I still do. You know, I post posts every single week. Some things are easier written than shown, but the other way around works as well. So if I'm trying to, I couldn't describe on my website like the view of a sail-in from somewhere. But I think if I look back at the beginning, you know, I used to be able to post links to my blog posts on Facebook and people would click on them. That's not really how that works anymore. It's not set up for that, is it? As soon as you put a link on Facebook, it won't show it to people. So you kind of have to get a bit more creative now, I think. Videos do quite well across everything. So I think we're in a good position. But I think you have to respect people's time. Often I see, you know, really long posts about things and really, really dragged out videos. I try not to do that. I don't think that's very fair. So if you're on social media and you've got, you know, something you want to share, some tips or something, just keep it relatively short. If you can adding photos, I think always helps. But I think we're in a good place with video. I think it's going more and more, especially with, you know, short form video. It's everywhere.
That's what I was going to say. So I think we got accustomed over the last few years of making long form content. And then all of a sudden, short form, I don't want to say that it's now the supreme way to go, but we do see explosive growth in TikTok. We see explosive growth, not as much in Instagram Reels. And of course, YouTube with YouTube Shorts trying to actually grab some of that short form audience. How do you think it's going to play out long term? Do you think it's going to be a mix of both? Do you think long term will still rule the day, or do you think we're all going to be TikTokers before it's over with?
Well, I'm someone who spent so much time on TikTok that I had to delete it off of my phone because I couldn't stop myself. I have no control. So I completely understand the draw of those short form videos, but I don't think it's ever going to replace long form. And I think I still try and urge people to film things horizontally rather than vertically, because you can always edit something down to be vertical from horizontal. But if you've done it the other way around, you can never see what's outside of the frame. And I just imagine, you know, in 10 years, you try and show someone your video or something, or your family and friends, and everything's vertical. I don't think it will work. But yeah, I think it's different because I watch all those. I couldn't even tell you who I watched on TikTok when I spent all of that time on it. So I don't. I think to build brand, you want to see someone like this, like talking on a longer podcast, you want to watch a live stream, and you want to kind of, I like watching YouTube videos that are 20 minutes long. You know, I'm doing something else and it's like a familiar friend that you can put on in the background who will tell you something. So I think there's room for both. I think they're both very exciting. I think short form is exciting, but I'm not going to give up the long form. Definitely not.
Yeah, it's tough. I'm having trouble cracking the short form formula, that kind of thing, because I am so in love with the longer form content. And of course, like a crazy person, I like to do this on the daily, and so I can't imagine trying to add another 10 pieces of short form content. Just I'm a lot like you, like Jenny and I, we just work on this ourselves. We have grabbed some family members to help with some writing on the website and stuff like that, but it's kind of hard without a video editor to start cranking out all these different pieces of content. Now, I know you do have people that help you out, and one person that I've seen help you out's already been on the video today. Captain Hudson made his way by you when we were talking earlier, and
Yeah.
it's brought a couple. It brought to mind to me first the Captain Hudson plushie, which is a plush doll that you had created and that you recently sold, and you did that for charity. And then you've also more than once shaved your head for charity. It does seem like charity is a big component in what you do. Do you want to speak briefly about those two things, and what was your motivation a little bit for both of those things?
Okay, so the first time I shaved my head, I I was at my granddad's funeral, and I thought I want to do something, just something. So I did that. I don't know why I decided on that. It must have been advertised or somewhere, but we raised, I think, 5,000 UK pounds from my first head shave. I did it on a cruise. I was very, very happy with that. And then when I hit 100,000 on my YouTube channel, I was like, can you imagine 100,000 people? If I was on a stage in front of 100,000 people, I would want to say something and do something beyond just cruise tips. As much as I love cruise tips, that is a massive audience and that's terrifying. So I decided to do it again, and I think we did 42,000 US dollars, which for the sake of hair is absolutely crazy to me. And then I thought, I do not want to do that again. I'm not doing it for a third time. I've done it twice. It always takes so much longer than I think to grow out your hair from a buzz cut. So my cat, Hudson, this wasn't the plan, but he's become something of a mascot for my channel. I think he's more famous than me. When I go away, people make animations of what Hudson's up to without me and post them in our Facebook group because people just love him. So he's kind of become, he's like my logo, my mascot. And I decided to create these soft toys so that people could take them on their cruises and, share a picture of, oh, Captain Hudson's in Miami or something. I think that would be really cool. And I did that for charity really because I had to get a minimum order of 300. That's how it works. It's not like a print on demand. You have to agree. And if I didn't sell that many, I would have had to bought like 200 myself. So I thought this would be a nice thing to do for charity that I don't have to shave my head for. And I came across Mercy Ships and I thought that is the perfect tie-in. They're basically a company that builds these epic ships, hospital ships, and fills them with volunteer everything. So there's volunteer surgeons, nurses, all the chefs are volunteers, people on reception, they're volunteers, and they sail around and they give people, surgery and medical care that don't have any. It's just such a fantastic use of ships. I thought that fits in well with our channel, and they're such a good company. So we sold 1,300 the first time, which is more than my 300 that I needed. And already that they're in the post, in the mail, as you would say, in the post right now. And as soon as he arrives, I'm going to launch version 2, and we're going to do it for charity again because I just think it's fantastic. So who knows how much? I think we did 12,000 US dollars this time, but that's just version 1. I think we can do more.
That's awesome. Do you think, well, I mean, we don't have to overthink it here. Is it going to be the same plushie, or is he getting him a different outfit or something interesting, exclusive each round?
Yeah, I think he's going to be the same base model because I think it's very, very cute. It's exactly what we want. It's basically he's ginger and white cat with his captain's hat on one ear, and it says Emma Cruises on his little neck thing. But we're going to add something every single time. And I was thinking we could do like Formal Night Hudson goes to the beach. Next time, I think we're going to do Hudson with a little life jacket on because I just I just bought one from Amazon. It was like an elf on the shelf £3 life jacket that I put on mine. Just thought it would be funny. And so many people have bought them for their Hudsons. So I think version 2 is going to come with a little life jacket, possibly a chocolate chip cookie in his pocket or something like that, because that's become a bit of a thing on my channel. And then who knows? I think maybe every 6 months or so, providing as long as people want to keep buying them, I will keep donating it because it's so fun. I can't even imagine. Imagine if I'm on a cruise and my Captain Hudson can meet someone else's Captain Hudson.
It's a pretty cool idea. I'm looking forward to starting, as people get them and they start taking pictures of them on cruise ships. I'm looking forward to that, and I'll be on the lookout for that. This is my new goal too on my cruising adventures, is to try to get a picture of your Captain Hudson plushie in the wild. Now, so famously, recently, the world's largest YouTuber, Mr. Beast, who is a big time charity work guy, he recently did charity work where he gave out shoes, and he caught a lot of backlash because he was doing it very publicly on the internet. Have you gotten any pushback with your charity work, and how do you contextualize that with, okay, I'm doing charity work, but everybody obviously sees me doing charity work? How do you make sure people know it's not a, oh, look at me kind of thing?
I mean, what I've learned from YouTube is there's literally nothing you could say or do that people will not be mean to you about. So if people are going to say mean things on the internet, you might as well do something that actually is worth doing. And I mean, if I have a look at, you can see how much we've donated to them and what that's done for them, like how long that's funded them a nurse for, or how many cataract surgeries that's done and cured people's blindness. It really does not matter to me. I mean, why? Of course, I'm only making this money because I have my presence online, but I have the presence online, so I might as well use it. That's what I think. So yeah.
I commend you for the work, and it's inspirational, and it's like, oh, maybe it makes you think, like, am I doing enough to take the opportunities that I have to do something? So way to go. I think that is awesome. Now, what folks may know or not know, we're recording this on the 31st of March, but I'm not actually published this, or haven't published this until probably a week or so from now. And at that time, unbeknownst to many, I will be on a transatlantic cruise, leaving from New York City, making my way eventually to Rotterdam in the Netherlands, with a couple stops in the UK. And so I am so excited because this is my very first opportunity to go anywhere in Europe. And this will be the first time that I go to the UK. But it brought to mind, and I messaged you the other day, I don't really know what I'm supposed to do. So you live fairly close to a cruise port there, Southampton. What would you say to people that are coming to the UK for the first time, or coming to Southampton for the first time, that don't really have any kind of European experience? What should people do when they come to the UK for the first time? What would you
Oh
recommend?
my goodness. Well, that's hard to do. If you're only going to be in England for a day or two, that's quite tricky. And I know we had this conversation about is it worth going into London? I think if you're only going to do a day or two in the UK, you've got a couple of stops, probably it's worth going into London. London's very, very exciting. But also, we have so much more than that. I will say a lot of the excursions and things that cruise lines offer in the UK, you really do not need them. We're set up for walking absolutely everywhere. So if you want to walk to anything, I've never found anywhere I can't walk to. And also our trains and our buses are pretty easy too. So don't assume that because the cruise line says you need this bus to get somewhere that you really do. I did a British Isles cruise last year, didn't do a single excursion. That was no problem at all. You can easily use the cruise line's website for inspiration, see what they suggest the top things are to do, and then just book your own tickets, walk there, get on a train. It's pretty easy like that. It's all the ports that you will go to are places where just regular people live. They're not kind of built for tourism. It's just a normal city, which I find different from if I'm taking a cruise somewhere like the Caribbean and you get off and you can tell this is for the cruise. If you're going to go to somewhere like Liverpool, you're just on the side of a normal city. Everyone's just going about their normal day.
Awesome. So just some tactical basic things, like public transportation. when I was in Australia, what worked well is you could just tap your credit card and use the public transport. You didn't have to worry about buying tickets or converting money or anything like that. What's the public transport like in the UK?
Yeah, we're pretty. Most of us use contactless on our cards for most things. We still accept cash, but cash really isn't a thing. I go months and months without using any cash. You can buy tickets online for the trains if you wanted to do that, or they have the machines around, but still they're contactless. Same with the buses. So if you did want to use cash, you can, but I don't think that you need to. Really, it's easier just to contactless. If you're like in London and you're on the tube, you just tap in, you just tap out. It works it out for you.
What's it like to interact with people, say like in London? So I've lived in the South in the United States for a long time.
Yeah,
You're almost trained here to smile and talk to everybody. Sometimes when you go to
yeah,
the northern states and you're starting to talk to people on the street, they're looking at you like you're a weirdo. So what's it
yeah.
like in the UK? Are they used to like, is there a lot of interaction with people? Do Americans annoy people in the UK? What do you what should be expected?
I mean, I think we have the same sort of thing here, and people would say that us in the south, we're less friendly than people in the north. And I recently took a cruise from Newcastle, which is about as north as you can go, and everyone there was so unbelievably friendly. So I think I agree. But in London, most people just sort of, it's the same as New York, I think. I think New Yorkers and Londoners are very, very similar in that people are walking fast, they've got somewhere to go, it's probably a bit rainy, a bit drizzly. And people generally don't talk to each other unless they have a reason to. People are just too busy. Uh, I don't know. I mean, it's very loud in London, so it's not like it's not like silent and you're the only person talking. It's not like that. I took a cruise where we ended in Japan, and being on those trains was really strange for me as a tourist because it was so quiet. It's not like that in London. It's so loud.
Lot of hustle and bustle. If you
Yeah.
are in London, so what in my mind, if I when I go to London, I've got to see
Mhm.
something from the royal family, right? I got to go to the Tower of London or go to Buckingham or something like
Yeah.
that. But then in my mind, I also see the Eye of London, which is very iconic,
Mhm.
double decker
Yeah.
bus, that kind of thing.
Yep.
What's something that's not touristy like that? That's a must do in London, like some hidden museum, or is there anything that you would recommend that people should see in London, or is it just those iconic things?
Oh my goodness. I mean, I think for me, it's hard because, when you're just so used to things and we just walk past things and just go in a pub that's like 400 years old and I don't even look at it because I'm so used to it. I will say, I think the easiest thing to do in London is people think that all of these things like, the London Eye and the London Bridge and stuff, they think that they're close together and it's really not. So I would either go on the tube on the underground, or get the hop on hop off bus so that you don't waste time because there's so much to see. That's what, yeah. I think if you think, oh, I'm just going to walk over there, just over that bridge, just to Buckingham Palace, just to the park, you can, but it will. By the end, you'll have done like 30,000 steps. So, yeah,
Oh wow. Yeah. All right. So here's this has been bothering me the whole conversation. I don't think it's bothering me, but what are we supposed to call the UK? Is it UK? Is it Great Britain? Is it England? What how can you educate us uneducated on what we're supposed to call the UK these days?
okay, so I took this British Isles cruise, and people were very. I stuck to the definition of like Britannica.org or something, which I thought would be the main site for what is the UK, what is Britain, what is England. Um, if you just say the UK, you're not going to go wrong at all. So maybe just stick with that. Uh, but yeah, it's just tricky in Ireland. That's the thing, because the south of Ireland isn't in with us.
That's the main thing I've been trying to not offend anybody. So I think that's why I just refer to it as the UK because I know there's a lot of
Yeah,
intricate history there, and I'm going to Ireland and Scotland and all
I
those
think
different
I figured.
places. So yeah, I don't want to. I'm only got a
Yeah,
couple stops there on this trip that I would be on now when this is published. I'm really excited
yeah.
because I'm going really to the Scandinavian countries. I'm going to like Copenhagen and
Hmm.
Amsterdam, and I can't wait to
Yeah.
experience that. But then in June, I'll be spending a longer time doing the British Isles cruise. I'm so
Yeah.
excited about it. I can't
It'll be
imagine.
amazing. I can't
Yeah,
wait. I
I
can't wait
can't
for you
imagine.
to do it. But yeah, I mean, the cruise lines call it a British Isles cruise, so You will have people comment and be like, but to be fair, my British Isles cruise stopped in France, and that's definitely
Yeah.
not Britain. So
Yeah, I have a stop in France too. So that's what I'm trying to figure out to
yeah,
do the like can I get to Paris
just
from
say,
Le Havre or whatever,
yeah, just say you're going to the UK and France, and then that covers everything, and you're fine.
That's right.
When are you
Okay,
going to need
good.
to say this anyway?
I probably
Someone's
won't.
going to come
Well,
up to
when
you
I'm
and be like,
talking
"Please
about
don't."
it, like, yeah, probably not in country, but when I'm recapping it, because I found out people are very particular about it because I was just talking about, Australia in any way, right? Like, oh, there's a lot of beaches in Sydney, and people are like, you're an idiot. Of course, there's a lot of
Yeah,
beaches in Sydney. I'm like, I've stepped into a landmine of wrongness here, just trying to talk about my experience. So I'm just trying to get, I'm talking to an
well,
expert here, so I'm
I'd
trying to
say
trying to make sure.
I said, just say the UK and it'll be fine. But going back to what we say about there's nothing you can say on the internet that's right. I said the other day, I am from the UK, which is the most factual thing. And someone was like, you shouldn't call it the United Kingdom. We're not united. And I was like, oh my
Uh,
goodness. It's literally on my passport. I'm from the UK. So wouldn't worry too much about it.
So you guys have the new king over there now, and I don't think you follow the royal stuff too intensely, but what do you think? Do you think that Harry should come to the coronation or no?
I haven't paid any attention to this. And I think Americans are more invested in it than us.
It's a weird
To be honest, I
conversation
don't
over
think
here. Like every headline, I don't follow it too much, but I do get a lot of headlines where I get headlines and it's
I
like,
haven't heard.
"Will Harry and Meghan go to the coronation?" And I'm like, "Does anybody really care?" I don't know.
Well, I haven't heard any stories like that. Haven't made any plans, coronation plans. So
Did you get
that's
invited to the
embarrassing.
coronation? You got
No, I
invited to the
did
coronation?
not,
No.
or I missed
Okay.
missed it if I did.
Missed it in the post.
Yeah, yeah, in the post somewhere. But I
All
don't really, I don't. It doesn't make any difference to any of us who goes or is in charge. They don't really, they're not in charge anyway. So
Let's put all the Harry Meghan stuff aside and talk about something super important: packing for your cruise. So,
hmm
when you go on a cruise and you fly somewhere, do you normally have to check a bag, or are you one of those, super packing ninjas that only travel with one bag?
I have done before. I've come to the US for 2 weeks and only bought the overhead locker ones. I tend to check a bag now because it's stressful trying to get the space in the plane more than anything. But I'm still a very light packer. Sometimes if I book a flight, I'm not sure if it's the same in the US, but if I'm doing like an EasyJet flight, the cheap airline we have here, you can normally do different weights of bags and they'll cost more the heavier your bag is. And I'm always on the cheapest one. I don't pack very much. My last cruise, though, the one I did to Norway, that was so tricky to pack light because you had to have thermal trousers underneath your thermal trousers. Every day you're going to wear 2 pairs of thermal socks. You have thermal shirt on under your shirt, under your jumper, as we would say here, and then coat.
That's what I was wondering when I was thinking about this. So on this trip that I'm on currently, my thought process is that I would only bring 5 days worth of clothes, but I'm going to be gone
Mhm.
for 23 days. And for
Yeah.
me, I'm just going to do laundry every few days, which I know kind of goes against the being frugal on a cruise ship. Are you like when you're packing light, are you doing laundry or are you just how are you managing it? Or are you able to pack light and get a week's worth of clothes or 2 weeks worth of clothes?
I just don't really have options, which I kind of like. I know people will bring 4 pairs of shoes so that they can think of which shoes go with which outfit. For me, I've only got one, and then I don't have to think about it. And I prefer that. I will do laundry, but I'm not going to pay the cruise line to do my laundry for me. If I'm cruising with a cruise line like Norwegian, I get the free loyalty bag. That's lovely.
Hmm.
It's lovely to use the laundry, but I'm not going to pay for it. If they have a self use laundry, sometimes I'll do that. Or if it's just, I need to wash a t-shirt or a couple of t-shirts, I bring the travel wash, just wash it in the sink and dry it in the bathroom. Like that works fine.
There's the hack that I was looking for. Bring the travel wash or detergent, as we would call it, and wash it in the sink. Uh, Controversial topic that we can delve into. How do you feel about packing cubes? Are you pro packing cube? Or are you anti?
I am, which people don't think I am because I pack so light. but it helps me to pack light because I will shove so many t-shirts or whatever in this and then zip it closed, and it kind of makes it smaller because it compresses them a little bit. And then when I get to the ship, normally all I have is I've got one that's got, all of my underwear and socks in it, just throw that in a drawer. One that's got all my t-shirts and jeans in it, throw that in a drawer. And then I just sort of hang up dresses and unpack things like adapters and stuff. But I can unpack very, very fast because it's already in the cubes. And also I use it when I'm coming home. If I've got stuff that I haven't worn, I'll keep the clean stuff in the cube, and then I have to wash it again when I get home.
Okay, so I'm gonna admit something here that I haven't admitted yet in life. I used to use packing cubes on the first few cruises, and then I no longer found the value in them. But I just recently made an order for packing cubes just for my socks and underwear. So
Yeah.
I'm going back to the dark side this cruise, packing and packing cubes.
I find it useful if, say, I'm staying in a hotel the night before I go on the cruise and I want to get something out my suitcase. You don't want to be like rummaging around through everything, but you can just move. Oh, there's all of my winter clothes, or there's all my cruise dresses that I don't need. You can just move them all out because they're already in one packet. So that's what I find quite useful as well. But yeah, I don't think it's a huge deal either way.
All right, so that's packing your clothes. Another component you have as a content creator is packing camera gear, equipment, that kind of thing. Let's even not even take it to the extreme as being somebody who makes cruising content. What do you recommend people that just want to capture their memories? What should people invest like in a big camera, or what do you think the best way, because your footage looks really good on your videos. What are you using to capture that, and what would you recommend just to the average traveler if they want to capture some of their memories?
I really don't think anyone needs to invest in anything beyond a decent phone. Almost, I would say 75% of the content in my videos are from my phone, because I used to use bigger cameras, but when you take a camera out to go and try and film things, you're never going to find what you need. It's going to be closed for a certain reason, or it just doesn't work. And things happen when you don't expect them, and that you want to be able to capture them. So my phone is what I use most of my stuff on. I have a couple of other cameras that are definitely YouTuber cameras, but tiny ones. I've got a DJ Pocket Osmo, which is a tiny, tiny little camera that you could put like on the handlebars of a bike or something like that. It does quite nice wide shots. But if you're just doing a normal family cruise, there's no need to do that. I do have the Insta360 now, the one that makes it look like you've got a drone. It's a very clever camera that basically edits out its own selfie stick, so it looks like it's just flying, which is amazing. But again, if you're just taking a regular cruise, you do not need that. That's something I've only got in the last couple of months. My first 300-400 videos on my channel are entirely on my phone. And not, it's not like the newest phone, like a fairly decent, I have an iPhone, I'm on team iPhone, but a fairly decent smartphone, more than, I can't imagine what else you would need that it doesn't do.
So with your cadence of content creation right now, do you have to take a laptop with you, or are you working much on the cruise ship, or are you able to not work much on the cruise ships these days?
I do, yes. I'm trying to think of an example where I didn't, but I do bring my laptop now. But I will bring, a small backpack or handbag or something that'll have my laptop in it, my phone, and a tiny, tiny little camera. It barely weighs me down.
Let's transition away from the packing talk to the actual trip talk. How about that? What are your upcoming plans, or what are, forget about plans. I want to know what stories I can expect from Emma Cruises over the next 6 months. You got any cool ideas that you can tease us with?
Well, I know we were talking about me being a more frugal cruiser, but if I have a look at my cruises that I've booked for this summer, I have booked some of the most interesting and exciting and biggest and amazing cruise ships. So recently I've done a lot of kind of cheap Costa cruises, MSC cruises, fantastic ones, P&O cruises, but I'm going this summer and I'm doing Symphony of the Seas. I've never done a really big cruise ship like that. So for me, that'll be my first time on a big Royal Caribbean ship. I'm doing Norwegian Prima, which I've cruised with Norwegian more than any other cruise line, but haven't done such a new Norwegian ship. I'm taking a trip on a yacht. That one's a press trip. I feel like I need to say that because I'm not typical yacht cruiser, but I'm gonna see what that's like. So we can expect a budget cruiser does yacht cruising. And I'm doing Celebrity Edge. Ooh la la. So very exciting ships, I think.
Wow, that sounds like a great lineup. I can't wait to see it. Look, Emma, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to talk to us here. Thanks for being on the podcast. Of course, Emma Cruises everywhere where you can find stuff. There's a website, there's a YouTube channel, there's the TikTok, there's the Instagram. Again, Emma Cruises everywhere. The logo usually includes Captain Hudson, so it's not hard to find.
Yeah.
Emma, thank you so much for talking to me today. Much appreciated.
Brilliant. Thanks for having me. This has been so fun. Podcasts are fun, aren't they?
Yeah.
I like.
Well, there you go. That is a conversation with Emma Cruises. I hope you're enjoying this video presentation of the La Lita Loca Cruise podcast. Of course, you can get it in audio form anywhere that you get your podcast. If you'd like to hear this podcast early before it gets published here on La Lita Loca Presents, you can do that over on our Patreon channel for as little as $5 a month. So if you'd like to get early access, come check us out, patreon.com/La Lita Loca. A big thanks again to Emma for joining the conversation today. I hope you enjoyed it. Do me a favor, hit the like button. This is Tony for La Lita Loca, and until the next time, we'll see you on the Lido. Bye.